A very good morning to each and everyone, and a very, very warm welcome to Smart Metering Summit 2021, day two. How was the day one? A very quick recap. So, we had total of six presentations, and we had three panel discussions, and which was just phenomenal. We had some very overwhelming response from the crowd, from the audience, and we are very, very happy about the first day response. We're looking forward for day two with a similar great responses from our audience and participants. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me take you through what's the plan for day two. So, we're going to have two keynote presentations, and then we're going to have a panel discussion one. Post that, we're going to have a quick break, and then we continue with one keynote presentation and the last panel discussion. So let's begin with the very first keynote presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure everybody is ready and we are about to begin. A very, very warm welcome to our first keynote speaker, Mr. Sandip Dutta, Country Head IBM, with a round of applause. And we're going to have a discussion on blockchain in smart metering. So, the gentlemen, now it's over to you. And I hope you are very, very great session. All the best, sir.
Thank you. Let me just put up my screen. Are you able to see my screen? Hello?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay. So hope you guys are keeping safe. Warm welcome to you all in Smart Metering Summit 2021. And it's early morning, and I'm asked with taking you through a session on blockchain in smart metering. For sure, it's too heavy a topic to start your day, and that too as a keynote. So when I was approached for this, I was wondering what to say on this debatable topic, and that too in a keynote. So as you know, like this smart meter national program, right, which is happening in India. So the aim is that we will replace almost 25 crore conventional meters with smart meters in India. And till now, we have around close to 1.6 million smart meters, which is approximately, I can say, 0.6% of the target. So a long way to go. So this is how I have planned actually on the session. So I'll start with because the session is about blockchain and smart metering. So maybe good to recap on what is blockchain and why we are talking of blockchain for smart meters, and what is the way forward on that. So if we look at blockchain, right, so I think as a term, it is not new to any one of us, and I don't think this is a session where we need to explain about why blockchain and what is the importance of blockchain kind of thing, except we'll just touch upon some of the salient points of blockchain, right, which are more relevant from a smart metering perspective, right. So blockchain is essentially, as you know, is a system of recording information in a way that makes it difficult or impossible for anyone to change, hack, or cheat the system, kind of, right. So it's a digital ledger of the transactions that is duplicated and distributed across the entire network of computer systems on a blockchain. Right, so each block, right, in the chain contains, the transactions, and every time a new transaction occurs, so basically that record gets added as a block in that chain in the participants ledger, right. So this decentralized database managed by multiple participants in that is what we call as DLT, or distributed ledger technology, right. So blockchain is a type of DLT, right, in which transactions are recorded with something like a cryptographic signature kind of thing, right. So means if any of the block on the chain is changed, right, it would immediately send a notification, right, to all the participants in that chain, right? And from IBM side, where we are already running some public blockchains like IBM Food Trust, Trade Lanes, right, and blockchain transparent supply for different use cases, primarily to address issues around food or provenance, or or in the import or export business kind of thing, or to address something around the supply chain area, right? So that's basically primarily a recap of what is blockchain all about, right? Saves time, removes cost, risk, and trust, right? Now, what about smart meters, right? So now, since we are in the smart metering session, so I'm not going to talk about what is smart meter and what is the useful of that, but more about why this euphoria across the world, right, about smart meter, right? So to me, it is essentially there are three narratives I can say, right? So number one is innovation, and number two, empowerment, and third, control, right? So when you talk of innovation, right, so what if you look at the entire narrative on smart city, right? So we, for India, for example, there was a narrative around 100 smart cities in India, right? So it is primarily occurs on that benefits that all these new technologies that brings to the daily urban life, right? So, for example, in smart cities, the digital technologies translate ultimately into a better public service for the citizens, right? Better use of resources and less impact on the environment side, right? So ultimately, what it is doing is that it is ultimately, looking at enhancing the individual's quality of life, right, by providing transparent information about energy consumption through the smart meters, right? So that's what we can call it as on the narrative around innovation. If we come around the empowerment, right? So there is a term that is very common right now that has come, is called you have heard about consumer, you have heard about producer, right? So there is a new terminology that is coming in, which is called presumer, right? So what is presumer? Presumer is some set of people, right, who produces as well as consumes energy, right? So means I am actually helping on the production as well as I am on the consumption side, right? And smart meters actually is a step towards that kind of consumer empowerment, enabling them to become an integral part of the electricity system, right? Now, if you talk about electric vehicles, right? So there are whole lot of electric vehicles that are planned to be launched in India, kind of thing. And I was just looking at some reports that by 2023 there are some 27 new EV vehicles from different OEMs that will be launched, right? Now, if you look at the key challenge, right, and the key fear factor that we have, right, for widespread adoption of electric vehicles is that there's an anxiety about the range, right? So while most of them talk of that we can cover up to 200 kilometer, 300 or 400 kilometer, but what happens when you are trying to go from a long distance tour kind of thing, right? So that's basically not coming back from to and fro from office, right? So that's a key challenge is that, and one of the thing is what is I would say for this key innovations for a widespread adoption of these electric vehicles, right, is this range anxiety, right? So significant EV prospects have this fear, right, of running out of battery power on large distance communities, right? And so if there can be a possibility, right, if we can empower where as a person, right, which we call as a P2P EV charging mechanism, right, where I can, as an owner, right, I can make my charger available for the public during the time that I am not using it, right? So that's basically what we call as an empowerment or as a presumer kind of thing, right? Or for example, I have put a rooftop solar cell or PV voltaic cell, right? And I am producing more than what I am ready to consume, right? So there is a mechanism, right, where I can pass on that excess power that is generated, right, maybe to my neighbor, to my community, kind of thing. And in turn, actually, there is a mechanism of that how do I get paid for that kind of thing, right? So that's what we call it as the empowerment kind of thing, right? So that is basically what a blockchain can help, right? Where it can do help us in doing this kind of peer-to-peer trading, right? Rather than right now what is happening is that it is a one-way kind of thing, right? So you have basically the power generators, the distributors, right? And they actually give power to individual houses. It's a centralized control kind of thing, right? So can we move from this centralized kind of environment, right, to something which is decentralized, which is more empowering, right, where I can create an entire ecosystem of this distribution intermediaries kind of thing, right? Now, the third narrative is basically what do we call as control, right? So with smart meters, right, the consumer services is, we can get a lot of, personal data kind of thing, which is needed more for safety, right, more for informed choices and comfort, right? But on the other hand, right, about there is also a fear that how this whoever is getting this information, right, that how they are going to is there going to be an exploitation of that information that that you are getting from me as a consumer, right? So the three narratives, right, that we talked of, right, whether we talk of innovation, empowerment, and control, right, these are the allow for different interpretations of these smart metering devices, right? So they can serve as an enabler for autonomy, right, where I have a freedom of choice, a source of, it can also act as a source of additional income, and also a means to contribute to a sustainable use of resources, right? But they can also be exploited as a means of control, right, where we are talking of surveillance and illegal intrusion into the privacy of one's home, right? So this is basically, I'm just putting a narrative around around the smart meters, and and what can be the possible three narratives that can be there, right? So talking of that, right? So there are actually some vulnerabilities that we can look at, right? Especially on the smart meter side, right? And this is basically being discussed across the world, and there are some prominent issues that we have kind of thing. The smart first is that around privacy, right? See, the smart meter has, it's a critical access point, right? And it is maybe insecure out of several reasons, right? First of all, there can be privacy breach, right? So if a hacker gains control over it, right, one can access the data that the consumer has. One can even look at changing the entire billing amount, or the billing cycle kind of thing, which we call as more of a billing fraud kind of thing, right? On the utility side, right, the smart meter, while it serves as an access point to utilities private network, but a hacker could potentially communicate with its most critical assets, right? So just think of a scenario, right, where a hacker can control of it, and they try to shut down several hundreds and thousands of meters at the same time, right? That would cause a huge imbalance kind of thing, right, in the supply of the electricity grid, which could be severely jeopardized kind of thing. And it has happened, right? We have seen in the past, right, in Puerto Rico, where the smart meters got hacked, and they failed to record the electricity consumption correctly, and the utility actually lost close to 500 million by just getting hacked, right? In other words, right, so if the attackers can get access and are able to extract, right, the network key, right, from one single meter, right, they can actually potentially take over the entire network kind of thing. And the primary reason is that, if you look at the technology behind, the smart meters are either it is, follows either a 2G kind of thing or a Zigbee, right, which are good, but not the best kind of thing in the industry kind of thing, right? Because if you look at, Zigbee, it's when it was first envisioned and it came into use, right? So, the information security was at that time not as important as it is today, right? So there are whole set of now we have a whole set of different protocols that are available, but with regards to design, Zigbee is encrypted, right? Kind of thing. But when a device joins the network, right, so the way it happens is that, the smart meter sends the network keys to whoever it wants, kind of thing. Primarily it is made for the utility company, right? But if the hacker can get that key, right, they can impersonate themselves as a utility, right, or the, and then, they can actually start directly communicating with the smart meter, in turn the smart appliances, and where remotely I can even control, your door lock or air conditioner, and and everything, kind of thing, right? So that's basically, the challenge that we have, kind of thing, right? And what is, and the potential reason, right, if you go for that, the main thing, I think, is basically the cost drivers, kind of thing, right? Because a smart meter is like, unlike, our servers or laptops or whatever we use, right? It's a device which is located actually in a very hostile kind of an environment, right? So it's not a server room, it's not a closed environment, right? Theoretically, everybody can approach it, kind of thing, right? I can retrieve the key and do whatever, I want, right? So the key challenge is, right, if you look at, most of the tenders of the utilities that comes, especially for implementation of smart meters, right? The main driver always is the cost, and sometimes at the cost of security, right? So it can come, with a one liner kind of thing, that you have to use the state of the art security, right? So if that's basically a one liner that defines basically, like how the security should be included, kind of thing, right? So first, I think, we need to decide upon, that what should be the communication network, which is supposed to be low cost, right? So the primary thing is that, this decision, right, is primarily cost driven, kind of thing, okay? The second thing is that around accountability, right? So if an attack occurs, right, it is still unclear, right, that who is accountable and liable for that, right? So if we look at, like why we are talking of blockchain in smart meters, right? This addresses these four key points, kind of thing, right? The first thing being on the security, right? As transparent and, decentralized transaction technology, blockchain may be able to provide the security that is missing in the design of many smart meters today. But is blockchain ready to be used as a communication protocol in the electricity grid? May not be, right? So we still, there are some pilots that are going on, right, in terms of peer-to-peer trading in US or Australia or Europe, kind of thing, right? But the single points of failure, right, which can be avoided when they are distributed, and an attacker would have to actually hack each single device, right, to obtain that single key, kind of thing, right? And in addition, right, because it is decentralized, so that means we don't have a single point of failure, right, for shutting it down. So one of the main features, right, of blockchain related is what we call as keys, right? So there can be, there are two types of keys in blockchain. One is, we call it as private key, and another is the public key, right? So while a random private key, for example, in a Bitcoin transaction is a secret number, right, that allows Bitcoins to be spent, a public key can be calculated, right, using the private key, right? So these smart meters, right, we can actually have that private key securely stored in the device, right, in the smart meters, right, and which cannot be read out kind of thing. Okay. So when we think of this smart meter revolution, right, it is important that we have the smart meters have securely stored private keys inside, right, so that they can interact with the outside world. Okay. Now, when we talk of this, I already touched on that, right? This peer-to-peer trading, right, and that is actually, very much possible when we talk of, blockchain as a technology kind of thing, right? I touched upon on the private key part, right? So that's basically, that how do I exchange that key information between the various other companies or the utilities kind of thing, right? So the key can be digitally stored in the in the smart chain kind of thing, because ultimately we need to understand that smart meters will become an essential part not only of smart cities but maybe soon of each household kind of thing, with access to a central or a local electricity grid, right? So with continuous technical enhancements, they will empower consumers to choose flexible tariff systems to actively participate in the electricity system, and ultimately the objective is to save energy, right? So if this decentralized ledger technologies through blockchain are implemented, right, so there we see that there can be multiple paths, right, to enable consumers or so-called prosumers of energy, right, to organize financial transactions and physical electricity flows with or without any intermediaries such as utility companies, right? So that's basically what I wanted to cover as part of the keynote today. I hope I am able to manage on the time. I have few minutes left, around 4 minutes. So if there are any questions, I would be happy to answer that. MC, over to you.
Hello. Well, now this is open for Q&A. So anybody who have any questions? Yes, there are questions coming in. So there are questions coming in. Just a few seconds. So a question have been sent to your chat box, and the question is off-chain support requirement.
Okay.
So you are on mute, I guess.
No, I can say that, but I could not get the question. I think it is talking about brief on opt-in support requirement, and open that and can I get the question in detail, like whoever has asked? What is? But anyway, I'll try to address that. Maybe I think I am assuming that the question is more around the around the support requirement to support this kind of blockchain system, right? So I think the key here is that while there are some pilots going on, especially around implementing smart meters through private blockchain. But I think the key would be that how we can have a public blockchain implemented for smart meters. But there are still some issues around performance kind of thing, which is yet to be solved, right, before we get a wide adoption of public blockchain, especially with huge numbers of smart meters starting communicating kind of thing, and then adding data at every 5 minutes or 10 minutes interval, or whatever the interval that we set, right? That puts a huge stress on that system, right? And that is a potential issue in terms of the performance kind of thing, right? So I think that's primarily what is one of the key inhibitors kind of thing. Now, the second question is how to reduce on the transaction cost. I think it all depends basically that the volume that we are talking of, right? And that's where we are talking of adoption of public blockchain rather than a private kind of thing. So the more transactions that we can have kind of thing, right, ultimately the cost will reduce, right? Like any other SaaS or any kind of cloud platform that you look at, right? That the more volume that we have, ultimately the each transaction cost come down, right? So the same thing gets applicable also for here as well, right? So but still I think one of the things that is yet to be solved is basically the issue around the performance, especially on the public blockchain. So we are up on time. So thanks a lot for being here, and it was nice talking to you all, and hope you find the session useful.
So I think there are more questions for you.
No, we are done.
All right, sir. Let's close this session. Thank you so much. It was really wonderful having you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.